Good evening. My name is Jennifer Sheldon. I am the Director of Music at this most beautiful church, Casa de Cristo Lutheran Church. In case you're lost, that's exactly where you are. Welcome to the Arts Discovery Series. This is something I created 6 years ago, to kind of help beat the heat of the summer. Something kind of fun, something interesting to just kind of pique your interest before all the fall programs get started. We're starting, this first one is Mcclanathan. He is, I hope I said that right. Did I say that right, Leslie? Yeah, oh, pretty close. Maybe I needed to have more of an accent. Okay, so anyway, he's playing the bagpipes, and he's going to speak with you about bagpipes. It should be pretty interesting, I think. And then next week is Dr. Jason Thompson. He is the director of ASU Gospel Music. And so don't be afraid. He's going to have you do kind of like a sing-along, and I think that should be pretty interesting. He's a very dynamic man. I've seen him speak before and really enjoyed him. And then lastly, we're going to finish with Keith Johnston, who is an African drummer, and he also, he's going to bring his steel drums, and he's going to have you play the steel drums. So that should be pretty interesting as well. And so without further ado, I would like to introduce Michael.
Thank you. Did everybody hear that okay? Yeah, good. All right, great. Okay, these are the Great Highland pipes, and I brought another set with me, some border pipes, which I'll play in just a little bit. They're in different keys, different volume levels, that sort of thing. This one, they're actually both in a Mixolydian scale for musicians in the audience. And you only have 9 notes on the pipes to work with. So there's a lot of other embellishments that you put into the tunes to make them interesting with only 9 notes. So it'll play a little more, then I'll take some questions whenever you have some too. So. thanks. Get mighty thirsty when you're doing this. So the first tune I played was it was written for the McClanahans, who were the legendary pipers on the Isle of Skye. They were the pipers for the clan chief MacLeod. And I've been out to the Isle of Skye and seen where they were all buried in the cemetery there by the castle. And it's kind of eerie. I mean, there's like 10 generations of the McClanahan pipers buried in there. And it's just kind of it was cold, rainy, cloudy day when I was there. You know, it kind of helps to set the mood, you know. And but that one always was kind of one of my favorite tunes. It has a really nice melody, kind of a haunting melody to it. The other tunes I played after that were dance tunes, a little livelier, as you could tell. And so I know that it's not the kind of place where you just ask for requests, but most people don't know bagpipe tunes anyway, except for Amazing Grace, they know that one. And I'll just get that one out of the way for you. This is all wool, by the way. It's 8 yards of wool here, so it's a little warm to be in the desert with this kind of gear on. So yeah, the socks are wool too. So I'll show you a little bit about how this works. I don't know if anyone has had that opportunity yet before, but it's a double reed here in the chanter where you play the melody. And like I said before, there's 9 notes. And that goes in down here. And then this part over here is the background sound that you hear going all the time. There's a bass and 2 tenor drones, and there's a single reed in each one of these. So there's 4 reeds altogether. Reed-wise, it's kind of like 3 clarinets and a bassoon hooked to a bag. And the bag helps you maintain the air and keep it going. You're blowing in here randomly out of sync with the music, just filling the bag. And then you're putting pressure on it to force the air out through all the reeds and playing it right here. So kind of a, multitasking situation there. So some of you have seen bagpipes in person before. Not many, really. A couple. A couple in the back. Okay. All right. Well, these pipes right here were made in 1880. They're a really special antique set. They're African blackwood, ivory, and hand-carved sterling silver. I think the hand carving is one of the neatest things on the pipes, because today there's very little of that sort of thing going on. Today, when they make bagpipes, they take a little piece of metal and stick it in a CNC machine, hit the buttons, and there you go, it pops out, But somebody took a long time to sit and hand carve all this stuff and had to have a lot of skill to do it. So it's kind of one of those lost arts, All right, I will play a little bit more here for you, and then we'll switch over to the other pipes. You'll see there's a difference in the key, the volume level, and all that. They work very much the same, though. Oh, well, it takes a little doing. You have a question?
Tell us about the technique with song.
Yes. So in the first tune they played, there's a lot of Irish tunes you probably recognize, Danny Boy and whatnot. And the first tune, I did a lot of slurs on those. And what you do when you're playing, you move your finger slowly upwards and off of the hole to kind of change the note, bend the note in a way. And so I learned that from one of the top pipers in the world over in Scotland about 15 years ago or so, and I've been working on it, and it's kind of a delicate thing to do, because if you do it wrong, it makes kind of an ugly honk in there, you know, so it's not so good, but that's how you do that. And that last tune that I played, the really fast one, was a favorite of General Custer's, and the Army still uses that in their cavalry division today as a marching tune to honor him and all their guys. Anybody else have any questions? You might? Yes?
How did you happen to get bagpipes from 18 whatever? Were they in your family or?
Well, that's a good question, how to get the pipes that are so old. I got them from a guy that I had known him about 35 years, and he turned 85, and he called me and he said, I can't play anymore. Because there's a physical side to it. As you can see, I'm just sweating like a pig up here, you know, and all those reeds you have to power and everything, yeah. So he wanted to know if I wanted his pipes to carry on playing with them, so yeah. Real special set of pipes, yeah. Yes?
Can you tell us about the history of the bagpipes? How did they started?
Yes. The pipes actually originated in the Middle East, of all places. People don't realize that. Kind of in that Sumerian plain, which would be modern day Iraq. And they started out as just this little pipe that I'm playing here. In fact, in the Middle East today, they play an instrument very much like this. It's called a shawm, and it's used for belly dancing music and things like that. And it has a conical bore, so it's bigger on this end than this end. Double reed here, same amount of holes. And so they play it by just putting it in their mouth and blowing on it. But the reed is longer and thinner bladed, so it doesn't have the volume and it doesn't take as much air to make it work. So that's why they can just play it this way. This one has shorter, thicker blades on the reed, so it takes a lot of air to make it vibrate, and so you have to have something like this connected to it. I mean, I could play it this way, but not for very long. It just takes a lot of power, and you get that from squeezing on the bag. So it started out there, and then it spread out through Eastern Europe, through Middle East, and into Eastern Europe, and then Western Europe, and eventually made it out to, well, it started about a couple thousand years ago, roughly. And it ended up in Scotland about 1,000 years ago. And other countries on the way out there had their own indigenous form of bagpipe at one point. Turkey, Greece, Italy. In fact, some people think that the Romans brought the bagpipes into Scotland. But France, Spain, they all have bagpipes. In France, they have they call it a cornemuse. In Spain, it's a gaita. And They have been, they mostly died out over time, but they've been reviving them lately, taking them from museums and taking pictures and dimensions and having people make them and reviving the whole thing. So it's kind of nice to see some of that old culture brought back. So nobody's asked about the kilt yet. Yeah. Everybody knows about that. So it's wool, yeah, and 8 yards of material. They're all back here in the pleats. And this is called a sporran, which is actually Gaelic for purse. It's where you carry everything. Have all your regular stuff in there, cell phone and keys and, all that kind of stuff. And the shoes are also, they're a Renaissance style shoe. So this outfit would be from the late 1700s or early 1800s. So when this came up, this type of kilt. This kilt is called the little kilt or the filibeg in Gaelic. It has the buckles and stuff sewn onto it. Pleats are sewn in the back. If you've seen Braveheart or Outlander or any one of those old historical films, they had something different called a great kilt or a filamore, and those were just one big piece of cloth. I mean, in the old days, it was a very utilitarian outfit. They had a loom, and they had sheep, and they made this cloth, and it was just a big piece of material, however wide the loom was, and however long you needed it to fit around the person, usually about four yards or something like that. And it was pleated by hand before it was put on. And you would lay it down, and then you would fold the pleats into it, all this business in the back here, until you get the pleats about this wide. Then you lay down on it, and then you fold it over this way, fold it over that way. You put a belt around it, cinch it up to hold it on, and then you stand up and get it all arranged and everything. And then they had the piece of material hanging down the back because the loom was wider than this. So then they would take it and pull it up over their shoulder and take the other piece that was hanging down the front and pull it up over their shoulder and pin it up here. And you've seen a lot of those kind of pictures probably. But the thing about that made it so utilitarian was that if they were working or using their sword or something, they could twist it up and make it out of the way so your arm wasn't catching on it. Or if it was colder, you could untwist it and bring it around your shoulders. You could pull it up over your head if it was raining and keep the rain off of you. It actually works too. I read about this and I thought, a piece of wool is going to keep you dry. Well, it actually did. I played a funeral where someone asked me to wear that sort of kilt, and I did. I was standing there in the cemetery waiting for him, and it was pouring down rain, and I said, okay, well, let's see if it works. Pulled it up over my head, and I stood there and held it together, and went, well, pretty warm and pretty dry. I guess it works. And when they were traveling, they would take it off and wrap up in it at night. It's like a big blanket, so they didn't have to carry something extra along with them when they were doing all that. So I'm going to get these out. If anybody has any other questions, I'll take them. Oh, jeez. Hold on. All right. Where do we want to start her? Yes.
Where do you get your reeds? I speak as a clarinetist.
Well, yeah, a lot of people that play double reeds make their own, but I don't, because there's companies in Scotland that specialize in making these reeds, and they do a really good job of it. And I have a kilt shop down the road and bagpipe shop, and so I have a store of reeds there, and people that play the pipes locally come into the store and they buy the reeds and that sort of thing. So Yes.
What's the price tag of a bagpipe?
Price tag of a bagpipe? Well, it depends a lot. So a starting price for an instrument for like a student would be around $800. And they come in all different styles of mountings and things like that, decorative things. And an antique set like this would be $10,000. Yes?
I'm curious about, you say there are only 9 holes. Does that mean that all bagpipe music is based only on 9 notes?
It is based on, yeah, all bagpipes. Well, all bagpipes like these. This is the Great Highland pipes. There's other forms of pipes like I mentioned before. In Ireland, they have some bagpipes called Ilian pipes. And if you saw Braveheart and you heard the music in there, those were actually Irish pipes. That's Hollywood for you, you know. And Titanic, they played Irish pipes in there. Did I get out of range for this thing? So they have a 2-octave range. Yeah, but these pipes only have 1-octave range, basically. But there's a lot of ornamentation of the notes to make them interesting doublings and grace notes and things like that. Uh-oh. Yes?
I have a few questions. About how much do the bagpipes weigh, and what fabric are the bag?
How much do they weigh and what's the fabric of the bag? I've never weighed them really. But the ones like this with all the silver, all the metal and all that on them weigh a lot more than others. But remember, there's a hole drilled up through the middle of it, so they're hollow for the air to, you know, the reed and the air to go out. So they might look heavier than they are. Yes, yes, you had one.
My association with the bagpipe has been primarily in military funerals. Can you explain the tie together?
Yes, association with the pipes and military funerals, yes. The military and the police and firemen have quite an association with bagpipes, and that comes from the old country. The Scottish regiments in the British Army, they were all they had pipe bands there. And so they brought that, well, when someone would fall, they would honor them by playing for them. And they brought that with them when they immigrated over, you know, in the 1800s and that sort of thing. So, as you know, a lot of Irish immigrated into New York and became policemen and firemen and things like that. So, you know, Irish, Scots, all that, they had the same culture with the pipes, so it's a tie. Hi.
I remember some connection to shepherds in the fields.
You remember connection to shepherds in the fields? Okay. I've heard stories about that in northern Italy, where the shepherds in northern Italy would play the bagpipes in the fields, and they would always come into town around Christmas time from the fields and play their pipes and their holiday songs and all that. I heard that from a few people. There was a lady that was from there, and she was very old, and she told me how she remembered when she was a kid, how that happened. So, yes? How did I get interested? You know, you guys have some really good questions. Well, my family came over from Scotland to Canada and down to Michigan, and I was born, grew up there. And when I was young, we used to go, I started when I was 10, you know, but when I was young, we used to go up into Canada and visit family that had settled in some area up there in Ontario. And they had a pipe band in their little town, and I would follow them around and listen to them, and the sound really touched me as a kid, and decided I wanted to do it. And my dad was pretty happy about that and got me an instructor, and I went on from there, and I taught my son to play. And in fact, he's playing over at the Westin Kierland Resort tonight I've been there at the Westin for 15 years playing a sunset routine every night for sunset for an hour. And he's taken over for me to do that because I'm over here. So, and I've started my grandson on lessons as well. He's 9. And yeah, Jennifer was just telling me that she had seen something on the Arizona Storytellers about that, where they did an interview with me and my grandson and all that when I was giving him a lesson. So it's neat to carry on with that. When I was young, it was a dying art. But as you mentioned with the police and fire departments, there's a lot more interest in that since 9/11, when they saw all the funerals on TV and it was very touching, and most of them said, you know, we need to honor our people like that. And so most of them, I've taught several honor guard groups, Phoenix Fire Department, Surprise, Gilbert, and all that sort of thing. So yeah, so it's actually growing in interest now than when I was young. Oh, I didn't get to that part. The bag is leather. There's a velvet cover over it, which is kind of a traditional thing, at least since the 1800s. There's a leather bag inside of the cover. There are different synthetic type of bags, but I've always played on a leather bag, and I like the feel of it. But synthetic bags are easy. There's no real maintenance to them. There's a little more with this, but not bad. So, all right. Anything else? Okay. Yes, it is growing in popularity. It seems. I think. Well, I've had my kilt shop for about 20 years, and I think when Braveheart came out, there was suddenly a lot more interest in it. Just people were exposed to all of the culture and kilts and all that stuff, and yeah, and I've done lots and lots of weddings where we outfit the whole party in kilts and everything, so it's pretty cool. I remember one wedding where we outfitted them in kilts, and I played bagpipes for the ceremony, and then because the bride's family was Scottish and the groom's family was Mexican heritage, and so after that, then the mariachis came out. They played at the reception, and then he said, hey, you want to play? I said, well, how about La Bamba? And I played that with them, and they thought that was pretty cool. So these are border pipes. These are from the border region of Scotland. And as you can see, the other pipes are very loud and meant to be outside up in the Highlands, and where you can just play and the sound goes away, and that sort of thing. But they needed to have some sort of music to play inside and play with other musicians, the drums and things, and dance and sing too. So the border pipes came about, and so these are similar in configuration. They're smaller around, a little bit shorter, and shorter in the pitch. It's shorter here, so the pitch is lower. So this one I had made in Edinburgh about 10 years ago, and I had the guy put a key on top, as you can see, like a clarinet key would be up here, just so I'd have one more note. because there's some things that need just one more note. Not traditional pipe tunes, but other things I'd like to play. Like, well, Be Thou My Vision, I can play that, but you need one more note on top, for example. And so I'll give you a taste of this and see what you think. So a lot of people recognize that last one, I think, the kind of fast one. Most people don't know the name of it, though. It's called Scotland the Brave. People will come up and ask me to play that one that goes down, down, da, down, 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 down. I don't know the name of it. So I don't know if anyone's seen the series Outlander, but the theme to that is actually the Skyboat song. It's an old folk song, actually, that is played on the pipes and sung as well. They put their own words to it, but I'll play the tune for you. Thanks. It's always nice when the thing slips out and you can't quite reach it. Yeah, no, I can't get it. There we go. Anybody have any other questions? Yes.
And you only use one of the background pipes, or are they all three always on?
All three are always on, yeah. You just blow in here and it goes. You know, you can see when I start up that they start up first, because those reeds are softer in a way than this. It takes more volume, more air to get the chanter going. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Talk about the bump when you start on the back.
The bump, yeah, it's called striking it in, and you hit it to get all the reeds going at once. If we didn't, it would be kind of. Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, I was playing over at the Westin one time, and you do the same thing at the end. You squeeze the air down, otherwise it would make that sound just trailing off, you know. And this lady came up to me and said, "Where's that sound at the end that goes ee?" I said, "It's not supposed to do that. Who did you hear?" Jeez, yes.
Tell us about the weaponry that you're wearing.
Oh, right. Well, this is called a ski and do, and it's a small knife that's kept in the sock. And when they were in battle, it's kind of like a last-ditch thing, you know. They had their sword, they'd have a shield on this arm and a sword, and if they got up close and they couldn't do anything else, well, they could reach down and grab that and, you know, use it that way. And this one's made from antler. A lot of them are blackwood or something like that. And this is called a Dirk. This one is a 1700 style. The 1800 style is a fatter blade here. It comes down like that, and they designed a little fork and a little knife to go in this part down here. So when they were out hunting, traveling through the countryside, they could eat with their fork and knife here, and had something to cut something up with. But this was pointier and all that for the main reason that they needed it. And all right, well, get back here at it. When you're playing bagpipes, you're standing still, you're not really dancing around or anything, so there's not a lot to look at here. You know, just stand there just blowing and squeezing, you know. All right. Anybody have any other questions that I can answer for you? Or yes. Significance to the plaid, yeah. And plaid is actually in Scotland called tartan. And the lines on it all signify different families. And sometimes there's only one little stripe like that difference from one family to another. And there's different colors of tartans, like this one's a very muted color, but clans that have a very bright red, for example, will also have a hunting tartan that's like a dark green or brownish or something like that, more muted colors, because they didn't want to be seen when they were hunting, you know, so they have a different, it's the same pattern basically, it's just different colors. And they have dress colors that have white through it, so it's more dressy, like for a wedding or something like that. So, yes. We're in a church. Hey, shoes and socks is what you can see, so. All right, well, I'm gonna wrap up here with, whoa, yeah. The difference between which? Yeah, so the difference in the two pipes, yeah, you notice the pitch was a little bit lower with this one and the volume was lower. So these are border pipes and they're pitched in the key of A and the other ones are in B flat. And yeah, yep, the difference in the length and the width of all this makes the difference in the pitch. Yeah. That's a good question, and nobody brought that one up yet. How long does it take to learn how to play? It takes about a year to get started. You start out on a little practice instrument that's kind of like this part right here, only there's a mouthpiece and you just sit and play it at a table with a book so you can learn all the fingering techniques and the tunes and all that. It's called a practice chanter. This is called a chanter. And it takes you about 6 months to a year on that. And then after that, then you get on to the pipes and you have to get control of all this business over here. And so that takes another 6 months to a year. And after all that, you may still sound like you're squeezing a cat. Where do people practice? Well, that's a good question. Yeah. Well, if you're unfortunate enough to live in a small place like an apartment or something, I know I've had students that have gone out to the park or something like that, where they're in the wide open spaces and they can practice, so the neighbors aren't knocking on the walls or something.
In Laguna Beach, California, there used to be a piper who would play on the cliffs overlooking the ocean in the evenings. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about sunset, you know, and playing the pipes and all that, and that's why I play over at the Westin every night. Yes?
Can I assume you do not smoke?
Well, since I started playing when I was 10, I think that probably kept me from smoking ever. Yeah.
The healthiest lungs in town.
Yeah, I do have healthy lungs. In fact, I have really long lungs. I didn't realize that until I had a chest X-ray several years ago, and they said, oh, go stand up there, put your chin on it. You've probably done that. Put your chin on the thing and take a breath, you know, and then go sit over there and wait. And they came out and they said, we only got the top half of your lungs. They had to take 2 pictures and put them together to get the whole thing. I had no idea. I guess it'd be good for swimming and bicycling and all that, but as you can see, I'm not a bicycler because I wouldn't have all this, you know? Yeah.
Are there women bagpipers?
Are there women? Yeah, there are. When I first started, when I was a kid, there weren't many. It was more of a boys' club. And especially in Scotland, most of the men in Scotland that played pipes were in the army. They played pipes in the army and then, you know, played afterwards and that sort of thing. But there are a lot more women now. Yeah. Well, just like there are women playing professional sports and things now. It's a whole different world. But yeah, there are a lot of women pipers now. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Way back a while, probably a little before your time, the University of Iowa had a band, an all-female
Yes.
band,
Uh-huh.
the Iowa Highlanders.
Yes, I've heard about them.
Yeah.
In fact, I've met some of the old players. When I was over playing at the Weston, they would come up to me and say, I used to play in Iowa at the band. And
At the ball games.
at the ball games, yeah. Yes.
Have you ever piped in haggis?
Piped in the haggis? Yes, I've piped in many a haggis and given the address of the haggis. All fair for your wan and soncy face, great chieftain of the puddin' race, aboon them all you tak your place, pinch tripe or tharum. All that business, yeah.
You ever play at the tattoo?
I haven't played at the Tattoo. I've been to the Tattoo in Edinburgh. I thought it would be great to be that lone piper up on the wall. Yeah.
It's a black watch.
You have to be an Army piper to have that distinction. Yeah, you do. Yeah, I checked into it. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. I think we're about there, right? I'll do one more and send you off.